Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, True Crime Matters, where we talk about and analyze everything true crime. I'm Tara Marie, and it is so nice to have you back. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. So it seems like the Menendez Brothers case is really coming to a head, doesn't it? I'm just trying to keep up as all of these incredible updates are happening. So first of all, for those who don't know anything about the Menendez brothers, I have a two-part deep dive I did a while back. I'll link that down below, but for those completely new to the case, the Menendez brothers are two brothers serving a life sentence for the murders of both of their parents, Mary Louise, known as Kitty, and Jose Menendez, in the summer of 1989. During the trial, it was argued that the brothers killed their parents in self-defense because they believed their parents would kill them for exposing the years of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse they endured as children. At the time, many people believed not only the boys were lying about the abuse, but that even if there was abuse going on, the boys had an option to escape. The prosecution argued that the boys killed their parents to inherit their fortune and that it was a crime of greed. But the defense explained that what really had happened was the brothers had threatened to expose their wealthy, top-level executive father as a child molester. All of that said, it took 2 trials to convict the brothers of their parents' murders. The first trial, 2 separate juries were deadlocked because all the women believed the brothers were acting in self-defense, while all the men believed it was a crime of greed, or that the brothers could and should have walked away. For the second trial, though, the judge ruled the abuse evidence was inadmissible, and manslaughter was no longer an option for the jury to consider. In the end, the boys were convicted of first-degree murder without the possibility of parole. Now, 35 years later, attorneys for the brothers have filed a habeas corpus due to newly discovered evidence in the case. One is a recently discovered letter that Erik had apparently written his cousin Andy in 1988 when Erik was 18 years old, just a year prior to the killings, which hinted that the essay from his father was still happening. The other new evidence was that a former RCA boy band member named Roy Rosello claims that Jose Menendez slipped him substances and raped him when Jose was an RCA executive working with the band. Now, on October 3rd, 2024, Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascón held a press conference, essentially saying that his office has been inundated with phone calls about the case due to the new Netflix series called Monster, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story, and people were calling on him asking for the brothers to be released. So the DA said he had a hearing on the schedule for November 26, which many people are now saying looks like a hopeful hearing for the brothers. In an unprecedented move, his family announced they were holding a press conference on October 16th. A lawyer for the brothers, Mark Garagos, and more than a dozen family members of Erik and Lyle Menendez were present at the conference to discuss the case and ask that Lyle and Erik Menendez be released.
We have over 20 relatives, both Kitty and Jose's sides of the family. This is virtually unprecedented in my practice, and I would dare say it anywhere, that 20 family members on both sides, victims, constitutional victims under Marcys Law, are here to urge the DA to resentence. When, after they're finished speaking to you today, we will then, Mr. Friedman will take them across the street to the Hall of Justice, and they will go through what Gascón does in resentencing, and they will meet with the resentencing unit. They will, under the California Constitution, Marcys Law, they will voice their opinion on why they believe it's time that these gentlemen come home. That they've spent over 35 years, and I've said it once, I've said it twice, if they were the Menendez sisters, they would not be in custody. We have evolved, it's time, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce Anna Maria, who's going to come up and speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. My name is Anna Maria Baralt. I am the niece of Jose Menendez. I stand before you today not just as a member of the Menendez family, but as someone who believes in truth, justice, and healing. Before I get started, I just want to say that I know this is an election season, but for us, this is not a political issue. This is about truth, justice, and healing. On behalf of our whole family, it is my honor to formally introduce our new coalition, Justice for Erik and Lyle. Like so many others, I struggled to process the events of that fateful August day and the loss that I felt. Over time, it became clear that there were two other victims there on that day, my cousins Lyle and Erik. Lyle and Erik would continue to be victimized. They would be victims of a system that wouldn't hear them. And they would be victims of a culture that was not ready to listen. They would be mocked. They would be called cold-blooded killers, left to rot in jail and denied any hope of redemption. If Lyle and Erik's case were heard today, with the understanding we now have about abuse and PTSD, there is no doubt in my mind that their sentencing would have been very different. And yet, despite their circumstances, they have chosen a life of light. Without hope of release, they persevered. They have sought to better themselves and serve as a support and inspiration for survivors all over the world. Their continued incarceration serves no rehabilitative purpose. It's time to recognize the injustice they've suffered and allow them the second chance they deserve. Now here we are, both sides of the family united, sharing a new bond of hope. Hope that with the re-examination of their case, a new outcome will be reached. Hope that this 34-year nightmare will end and that we will be reunited as a family. I am here to ask the District Attorney's Office to take into account the full picture, the truth that was hidden for so long. Lyle and Erik deserve a chance to heal, and our family deserves a chance to heal with them. Please join us. Visit www.justiceforerikandlyle.org and sign our petition. And if you'll indulge me, I have two more statements to read. The first is from my mother, 85 years old, Terry Baralt, the sister of Jose Menendez. She can't be with us today due to health challenges, but she sent me this. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person to support my nephews, Lyle and Erik. I begin chemo soon and my doctor says no flights. I need to be strong. I wish to make it clear that I stand firmly with this family. I am Lyle's godmother, and I love them both very, very much. My nephews have spent 3 decades in prison helping others. I have seen great growth in them. Even the law enforcement supervisors and corrections have written letters to the court asking for their resentencing and release. Millions across this country agree. I implore the District Attorney's Office to end our prolonged suffering and release Lyle and Erik back to our family. 35 years is such a long time. My prayer is that I live long enough to see my nephews again and to hug them once more. I have another statement, and this is written by a family member of Marta Cano and Andy Cano, that Andy, the one to whom the letter was written. This is written by one of Marta's children. Thank you for giving our family the opportunity to express our thoughts during this pivotal time in Lyle and Erik's case. Our family's tragedy has always been very public and has been extensively covered by many media platforms. Marta and Andy Cano would have wanted to speak today, but unfortunately they are both unable to do so. Marta is in memory care, but she spent decades supporting Lyle and Erik. Sadly, we lost Andy shortly before his 30th birthday, and we miss him every day. Both Marta and Andy deeply loved Lyle and Erik. They both believed in justice, but they also believed in a second chances and forgiveness. It has been 35 years since this happened, and we feel enough penance has been paid. It is time for them to be released and for all of us to move on and continue healing as a family. Again, if you want to help, please join us at justiceforlyleanderik.org and sign our petition. With that, I'm going to be followed by several members of the Anderson family. First will be Alan Anderson. He's the nephew of Kitty Menendez. Kitty Menendez. And the second will be Karen, the niece of Kitty Menendez. But first, Joan Vandom Rin, sister of Kitty Menendez, please join us.
Two soldiers, thank you. Not very much space for paper, is it?
Put the glasses on.
They're not even mine, but yes. Okay.
They match the top.
Okay. Please know that I'm nervous and full of emotions. I never thought this day would come. I am Kitty's sister. I stand here today with a heavy heart and also with hope and justice and understanding. We have received such an outpouring support in recent weeks, which led us to launch this formal initiative. For many years, I struggled with terms with what happened to my sister's family. It was a nightmare none of us could have imagined. But as details of Lyle and Erik's abuse came to light, it became clear that their actions, while tragic, were the desperate response of two boys trying to survive the unspeakable cruel of their father. As their aunt, I had no idea of the extent of the abuse they suffered at the hands of my brother-in-law. None of us did. But looking back, I can see the fear and tension that their father had instilled on them. They were just children who could have been protected and were instead brutalized in the most horrific ways. The truth is, Lyle and Erik were failed by the very people who should have protected them, by their parents, by the system, by society at large. When they stood trial, the whole world was ready to believe that the boys could be raped. Was not ready, not ready. The whole world was not ready to believe boys could be raped, or that young men could be victims of sexual violence. Today we know better. We know that abuse has long-lasting effects, and victims of trauma sometimes act in ways that are very difficult to understand. In the years since their conviction, society's understanding of sexual abuse and its psychological impact has grown significantly. We understand that a person doesn't need to fit a specific mold, whether it's gender or socioeconomic status, in order to experience abuse. In their case, if it were tried today, the evidence of their father's abuse would not only be admitted in court, it would provide essential context for why they acted as they did. No jury today would issue such a harsh sentence without taking their trauma into account. Lyle and Erik have already paid a heavy price, discarded by a system that failed to recognize their pain. They have grown, they have changed, and they have become better men despite everything that they've been through. It's time to give them the opportunity to live the rest of their lives free from the shadow of their past. While I recognize it is election season, this isn't about us or about the politics. It's about finding the truth, delivering justice, creating space for healing. I want to thank everyone who has reached out to our family in recent days and weeks, asking how they can help. Today we have an answer. Please sign our petition at www.justiceforerikandlyle.org and urge the District Attorney's Office, no matter who holds the DA position to consider all the evidence, both old and new, and to bring together justice for the family. And thank you very much for listening to me. I'm sorry I'm so nervous, I can't help it.
Next, we have Lyle Anderson, nephew of Kitty Menendez.
Hello, and thank you everybody for being here. Hello, my name is Brian A. Anderson Jr. I am the Kitty of Menendez. I'm Kitty Menendez's nephew. I am proud to be a member of this family and to help spearhead this formal effort to organize and galvanize all the support we have received. Together, I believe we can finally bring justice for my cousins, Lyle and Erik. I've known Lyle and Erik my whole life. I can tell you without a doubt that they are not the villains they've been portrayed as. They were boys, young, scared, and abused by their father in ways no child should ever experience. You, the media, focused so much on their actions, but they never were able to tell the full story of their abuse that drove them to such desperate measures.
Then they went to meet with the LA District Attorney, who is still reviewing new evidence supporting the brothers' claim that they were victims of sexual abuse by their father. Garagos said that after the press conference, the family members would march across the street to meet with Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascón to make their case for resentencing under Marcys Law, a 2008 California law that greatly expanded the rights of crime victims under the state's Constitution. Now, Marcys Law provides victims with the right to be treated with fairness and respect for his or her privacy and dignity, and to be free from intimidation, harassment, and abuse throughout the criminal or juvenile justice process. So originally, the DA had set a meeting for November 26th, but then literally hours after that family press conference and meeting with the Menendez family, the DA office announced they would have an answer in 10 days or so, which would bring us to about October 26th. Then yesterday, I saw this new clip on 2020 where District Attorney Gascón said he personally does not believe the boys deserve to spend the rest of their lives in jail.
Do you think the Menendez brothers will walk free someday?
Given the totality of the circumstances, I don't think that they deserve to be in prison until they die, okay? I don't believe that.
Now, on the heels of all of this, there is one uncle who actually disagrees with the rest of the family. His name is Milton Anderson, and he is the 90-year-old brother of Kitty Menendez.
As 24 members of the extended Menendez family called on Erik and Lyle to be set free, this uncle says keep the brothers locked up forever. Milton Anderson, whose sister Kitty Menendez was slain, has especially strong words for his other sister, 92-year-old Joan.
My sister Joan, who is as far as I'm concerned, a family turncoat. And I didn't realize how close she was with the Menendez brothers.
The truth is, Lyle and Erik were failed by the very people who should have protected them.
Moments after yesterday's press conference came to an end, Joan and family met with the DA's office for 2 hours. Joan, are you happy with the way the meeting went? Yes. Now Milton Anderson's lawyer is requesting a meeting with the LA District Attorney's office to hear him out.
There's a huge showing of unity in the family to release the Menendez brothers. But your client says no way.
This was a really incredibly brutal murder where both of the parents had multiple shotgun wounds, and he believes that the sentence was appropriate.
My sister was still moving, so they pumped more shots into her.
This lone wolf doesn't mind taking on 24 members of his family.
As Kitty's sibling, he also has rights under Marcys Law, and he strongly believes Lyle and Erik committed the murders for the money, and he wants to make sure they spend the rest of their lives in prison. Now, it is said that after the defense filed the habeas petition, the case was assigned to a prosecutor within the DA's office who was keeping Kitty Menendez's brother Milton Anderson informed for over a year since then. But then on October 3rd, 2024, the LA Times ran a pretty damning story about another case that has troubled District Attorney Gascón's reputation. And it is said that shortly after that article came out, Gascón suddenly called this press conference to announce that he was taking a second look at the Menendez case, which, if you recall, he said he had called the press conference due to the public interest in the case. Now, it's been said that allegedly Kitty's brother, Mr. Anderson, was never informed that the case had been reassigned, nor was he given any notice about Gascón's press conference, which he was entitled to under Marcys Law. But he, like the rest of the public, learned all of this new information out through the news media, which, if true, is a violation of his rights. Now, another thing that people are pointing out is the fact that Gascón is up for re-election, and allegedly his poll numbers were looking poor. So the question is he looking at this public outcry, and now is that affecting his decision either in one direction or the other? In other words, does he see this as an opportunity to get more votes for re-election if he does whatever he feels the people in the public are asking for, which I think is a fair question. Now, what do I think of all of this? Do I think the brothers will be released? I think if I had to guess, based on the tone from the DA, Gascón, I think it's looking more and more like they will be resentenced, probably using a manslaughter structure, which would ultimately mean that they have already served well over that 10-year sentence by now, and they will be released. Do I think that it's the right decision that they are released? Well, knowing what I know, number one, that the grand jury would not indict the brothers based off the idea that this was a crime of greed is compelling. Number two, the idea that two separate juries deliberated for a month because they were so troubled by the abuse evidence in the case, and they could not all agree that the brothers did it for greed. I mean, I think that says a lot right there. For me, the most damning evidence besides the nude photos was the ER medical report from Princeton Hospital when Erik was about 6 years old or so, when he had an injury to the back of his throat consistent with oral rape in children. Now, on top of that, you have this boy band member coming out saying that Jose Menendez drugged and raped him. I mean, whether or not you understand battered woman syndrome or PTSD, it starts to become very clear that it was very possible these brothers truly believed that their father would not let them survive if he thought his reputation would be destroyed once they revealed to the world that he was a child molester, especially if he was planning on running for public office, which he was. I think this case is really one of the most fascinating cases in United States history, truly. Remember how I said a few videos ago that I got my degree in broadcast journalism and film theory because I believe that media, including narrative film, is the most powerful force in society? Well, here's the perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, there was new evidence in the case. This all didn't happen because of the Netflix series, but the massive increase of public knowledge about the case and the public outcry following that knowledge, I think, is what ultimately led to the sense of urgency to get the brothers released. Now, do I think it's right about what was alleged about the DA's office violating the rights of Kitty's brother Milton? I mean, if that's true, I think it's deeply troubling that he was not kept informed, as that is his right. I also think the idea of an elected official just doing something because they will win more votes, I mean, that is obviously a very troubling thought. However, I think in this particular case, there are multiple pieces of new evidence that are being verified, which do fit the need which must be satisfied by the defense to prove these things happened and that they should be considered when determining a proper sentence. And the truth is, regardless of how Kitty's brother feels, if multiple juries were leaning a certain way regarding the abuse evidence, And then in the second trial, that abuse evidence was not heard at all by that next jury. That is the problem for me, especially when now there's new evidence on top of that. But let me know what you all think. Do you think Gascón is just doing this for votes? Do you think the brothers should be kept in prison like Milton is asking for? Do you really think that they will be released? Let me know what you all think in the comments section down below. If you have gotten any use out of this video, please take a second to subscribe so we don't lose each other. It costs nothing and it would mean so much to me to have your support along the way. And as always, thank you so much for watching and be careful out there.